Most people think overthinking means thinking too much. It doesn't. Overthinking is what happens when thinking loses direction and turns into a loop. The same questions, the same doubts, the same imaginary scenarios playing on repeat. And the more you try to solve it by thinking harder, the worse it gets. That's the trap. If you've ever replayed a conversation in your head 100 times, imagined outcomes that never happened, or felt mentally exhausted without doing anything physically demanding, you already know this feeling. Overthinking doesn't feel like chaos on the surface. It feels like control, like you're being responsible, like you're preparing. But underneath, it's fear disguised as productivity. Here's the uncomfortable truth most people never hear. You cannot think your way out of overthinking. Thinking is the fuel. Adding more only feeds the fire. So what do you do instead? Before answering that, notice something important. Overthinking almost never happens in the present moment. It lives in the future. What if this goes wrong? Or in the past, why did I say that? It pulls you away from now and traps you in imagined timelines. That's why it's so draining. Your mind is working overtime in places your body doesn't even exist. Imagine someone lying in bed at night, staring at the ceiling. The day is over, nothing can be changed, yet the mind refuses to stop. It jumps from regret to anxiety to planning to self-criticism, not because there's a real problem to solve, because silence arrived and the mind panicked. Overthinking is often a response to stillness we don't know how to handle. Most advice tells you to stop thinking or think positive. That advice fails because it fights the mind head-on, and the mind loves fights. Resistance gives it something to push against. Instead of trying to stop overthinking, you do something far more effective. You shift where your attention lives. Attention is the steering wheel. Thoughts are just passengers. When attention stays locked inside the mind, thoughts multiply. When attention moves into experience, thoughts lose momentum. Here's a simple example. Have you ever noticed that overthinking disappears during moments of full engagement? When you're deeply focused on a task, immersed in music, working with your hands, exercising, or even having a real conversation, your problems don't magically disappear, but the mental noise quiets down. Not because you solved anything, but because your attention left the loop. That's the key most people miss. Overthinking isn't solved by answers, it's dissolved by presence. But presence doesn't mean meditation on a mountain or forcing calm. It starts much simpler and much more practical. When your mind starts spiraling, instead of asking, "How do I fix this?" ask a different question. Where is my attention right now? If the answer is inside my head, you already know why the loop continues. The shift is this: move from mental analysis to direct experience. Feel your feet on the ground. Notice your breathing without changing it. Look around and name what you see. Engage your senses deliberately. This isn't avoidance, it's grounding. You're telling the nervous system, "I'm here, not in danger, not in the imagined future." At first, this feels almost too simple, and that's why people dismiss it. But simplicity is threatening to a mind addicted to complexity. There's a reason anxiety feeds on overthinking. Anxiety thrives on uncertainty plus imagination. Presence removes imagination from the equation. You're no longer fighting thoughts, you're starving them of attention. If this already feels different from what you've tried before, take a moment to support the channel by liking the video and subscribing. Content like this only reaches the right people when engagement signals that it matters, and it does. This is only the beginning. In the next part, we'll go deeper into why overthinking feels so convincing, how identity gets tangled in thought loops, and what actually breaks the cycle long-term, not temporarily. For now, let this land. You don't need better thoughts. You need a better relationship with attention. Overthinking feels convincing because it doesn't announce itself as a problem. It presents itself as you, your voice, your logic, your concern. That's why it's so hard to step away from it. You don't feel like you're trapped in a pattern. You feel like you're being careful, intelligent, responsible. But slowly, that identification becomes the cage. Here's what's really happening beneath the surface. The mind is trying to create certainty in an uncertain world. It believes that if it can just analyze enough, replay enough, predict enough, it will finally feel safe. So it keeps scanning for threats, mistakes, and future outcomes. Overthinking is not a flaw, it's a survival mechanism that has gone too far. But survival mode isn't meant to be permanent. Think about how often overthinking shows up around things that matter: relationships, career choices, social interactions, self-image. You don't overthink brushing your teeth. You overthink situations where your identity feels at risk, where being rejected, failing, or making the wrong choice feels like it would say something about who you are. That's the hidden layer. Overthinking is rarely about the situation itself. It's about what the situation means about you. This is why logic alone doesn't stop it. You can tell yourself it's not that serious 1,000 times and still feel stuck, because the loop isn't running on logic, it's running on identity and fear. Here's a powerful example. Imagine sending a message and not getting a reply. For one person, it's nothing. For another, it triggers hours of mental spiraling. Did I say something wrong? Are they upset? Am I being ignored? The message didn't change. What changed was the meaning attached to it. The mind filled the silence with stories, and suddenly those stories felt real. This is why trying to solve overthinking inside the mind is ineffective. The mind created the problem using meaning, and it will defend that meaning. Arguing with it only strengthens the loop. So what do you do instead? You interrupt identification. Instead of believing every thought, you start observing them. Not judging, not fighting, observing. The moment you can say, "I'm noticing my mind replaying this again," you've already created distance. That distance is freedom. Overthinking collapses when it's seen clearly, not when it's debated. This doesn't mean suppressing thoughts. Suppression creates tension. It means letting thoughts arise without following them, like watching cars pass instead of jumping into traffic. At first, this feels uncomfortable. The mind will protest. It will try to pull you back with urgency, but this is important. That urgency is the hook. Don't bite it. Stay with observation. There's another layer that changes everything: action. Overthinking thrives in inaction. The longer you stay mentally preparing without moving, the stronger the loop becomes. Action grounds energy, even imperfect action, especially imperfect action. Notice how overthinking often disappears after you do the thing you were afraid of. Make the call, send the email, have the conversation. The mind quiets not because everything went perfectly, but because uncertainty ended. Overthinking feeds on delay. This doesn't mean reckless action. It means aligned action. Small, honest steps that move energy forward instead of letting it stagnate in the mind. If you're finding clarity here, this is a good moment to pause and support the channel. Leave a like and subscribe. These ideas don't aim to overwhelm you. They aim to free you, one layer at a time. In the final part, we'll bring everything together: how to create a daily approach that naturally reduces overthinking, how silence and presence work together, and how to build trust in yourself so the mind no longer feels the need to control everything. Overthinking loses its grip not in one dramatic breakthrough, but through a quiet shift in how you live each day. When presence, action, and self-trust become habits, the mind no longer feels the need to micromanage everything. It relaxes, not because life becomes predictable, but because you become grounded. The real solution isn't to eliminate thoughts. Thoughts will always come. The difference is that you stop treating every thought as a command or a warning. You begin to recognize which thoughts deserve attention and which are simply noise. And that discernment comes from consistency, not force. A simple daily pattern changes everything. You start your day by grounding your attention before feeding your mind. Before checking your phone, before consuming information, you reconnect with your body. A few conscious breaths, feeling your posture, noticing the room around you. This takes less than a minute, but it sets the tone. You're telling yourself, I'm here before I'm everywhere else. Throughout the day, you notice when your mind starts racing. Instead of following it, you gently bring attention back to what you're doing. Walking becomes walking. Eating becomes eating. Listening becomes listening. These micro moments of presence break the habit of mental overuse. Over time, the mind learns that it doesn't need to constantly run simulations to keep you safe. Silence plays a crucial role here. Not forced silence, intentional space. Moments without input. No background noise, no distractions. At first, this may trigger discomfort. That's normal. It's the mind detoxing from constant stimulation. But if you stay with it, silence becomes stabilizing. It stops feeling empty and starts feeling supportive. This is also where trust is rebuilt. Overthinking often comes from a lack of trust in yourself, the belief that if you don't analyze everything, something will go wrong. But each time you act, each time you listen inwardly, each time you survive uncertainty without collapsing, trust grows. And as trust grows, overthinking fades. You don't need to control life to be safe. You need to be present enough to respond to it. Notice how the most grounded people aren't the ones who think the most. They're the ones who listen, act, and adapt. They don't rush decisions, but they don't freeze either. They move with clarity, not urgency. If this video has helped you see overthinking differently, take a moment now to like and subscribe. It's a simple action, but it supports content designed to bring clarity instead of noise. So the next time your mind starts looping, remember this. Don't argue with it. Don't obey it. Don't suppress it. Shift attention, take action, create space. Let silence do what it does best. Recalibrate you. Overthinking isn't your enemy. It's a signal that attention has gone inward for too long without grounding. And once you understand that, you're no longer trapped in your mind. You're using it instead of being used by it.